Welcome to Cambridge Forum, discussing democracy in the Age of Dubya, part of Public Radio's special coverage, Whose Democracy Is It? I'm Jamie Paglia. Cambridge Forum is now in its 37th year of bringing you live public programs for the discussion of the issues and ideas that are shaping our world. The first years of the millennium saw incredible turmoil in American democracy. From the contested presidential election of 2000 to the attacks of 9/11 to the ongoing war on terrorism, the domestic and international policies of our government have caused many Americans to question the health of our democracy. How has our democracy been impacted by a line of conservative leaders culminating in George W. Bush? Can our democracy be exported? Just whose democracy is it? Our speaker, political satirist Al Franken, explores these questions and many others in his best-selling book, Lies and the Lying Liars Who Tell Them, a fair and balanced look at the right. Al Franken is a Grammy Award-winning comedian and best-selling author of Rush Limbaugh is a Big Fat Idiot and other observations. Why Not Me? Oh, the Things I Know, and I'm Good Enough, I'm Smart Enough, and doggone it, people like me. He was a member of the original creative team behind Saturday Night Live and won 5 Emmy Awards for his writing and producing on the show. A graduate of Harvard University, he was named a 2003 Fellow at the Joan Shorenstein Center on the Press, Politics, and Public Policy at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Welcome to Cambridge Forum, Al Franken.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm about halfway through this book tour. It's great to be here at Harvard, where this book began. At the Shorenstein Center, I was asked to be a fellow there at the Kennedy School, and I asked what I had to do to be a fellow, and I said I had to write something. I said, okay, I'll write something, and I'll write a book. And I said, you want me to teach something? He said, well, you don't have to teach anything, but you can have a study group. It's a not-for-credit thing. And I said, okay, what do you want me to teach the study group? He said, you can teach anything you want. And I said, can I teach how to research my book? And they said, sure, go ahead. Yeah, and so that's what we did. In today's Time magazine, Bill O'Reilly said that, no. Bill O'Reilly said in Time magazine that there are powerful forces behind me. And actually, he's right, and some of them are here today. Team Franken members, stand up. Say wave to the people. Okay, guys, sit down, come on. That's it. That's your glory. Now it's over. So, yeah, powerful forces behind me. I guess this is on democracy in the Age of Dubya or Time of Dubya, and I tell you who's running the country are a lot of bullies. And one thing my dad told me was to stand up to bullies, and I did that with Bill O'Reilly. He's just an obnoxious bully, and you know that, and if you've ever watched the show. And as we were writing the book, I went out to L.A. to do this book expo, and I was on a panel with Molly Ivins and Bill O'Reilly and me, and we were there pushing our books to the booksellers there for fall. And Molly was telling about her book, Bushwhacked, which is great, and Bill was telling about his book, Living with Herpes. which is very good, by the way. It's a very good book. Because when you write what you know, it's that's the key. That's always the key. And I was pushing my book, and Bill got up before me and started to go after me. I don't call people liars, he said. I guess never having watched his own show. And he forgot that it wasn't his show. And I was allowed to get up and talk. So I told my book, and I explained why his face was on the cover of a book called Lies and the Lying Liars Who Tell Them, a fair and balanced look at the right. And I basically, through just reading nexuses of his shows and stuff, proved that he was not only a liar, but sort of a pathological liar. And people there kind of appreciated it. They liked it. They got the irony and every part of it, and just were really enjoying it, except for Bill, who at a certain point just went, "Shut up! Shut up!" And it's like a bully on the playground who hits a lot of other kids, and finally some other kid comes up and hits him, and he runs to the teacher, and he says, "Teacher, sue him." So Fox sued me. It was also an ironic suit because it was over Fox having claiming the trademark fair and balanced. By the way, the Bush 2004 campaign slogan is "Freedom is slavery." It's very interesting. Isn't that ironic too? So O'Reilly said that the purpose of the suit, he said on his radio show, was to punish me. And as soon as it was announced, I went to #1 on Amazon. It's been, and the book has been #1 for 5 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. And we've printed now 925,000 copies. So I'm licking my wounds. Don't ever go after this guy. He's and the suit was literally laughed out of court. Now, usually when you say literally laughed out of court, you mean figuratively. This was literally laughed out of court. The lawyer for Fox opened with, "Your Honor, the Fox News channel has over 85 million subscribers." And the judge said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know what that means. I get cable. Does that mean I'm a subscriber to the Fox News channel?" She said, "Yes." So, and then that was the opening, and they laughed all the way through. There were people like you there just laughing at the whole thing. So, and the judge came back, he left for a minute, came back, and he said, "There are hard cases and there are easy cases. This is an easy case. Your case is," he said to the Fox people, "is wholly without merit, both legally and factually, and it is highly unlikely that your trademark fair and balanced is valid." And if you've noticed, if you've watched any Fox lately, they have not been using fair and balanced. But ironically, the judge may have given them their new slogan, "The Fox News Channel, wholly without merit." So the same hubris that let the Fox News Channel sue me is the same hubris that's led this administration to do so many things, including today's big story about Joseph Wilson's wife. This administration outed a national security asset, a covert CIA agent who was working on weapons of mass destruction, endangering not just her and her contacts, but everybody in this room and everybody in this country and every freedom-loving person in the world, because they wanted to get back at Joseph Wilson. Well, what did Joseph Wilson do? Well, he was the former ambassador to Gabon, an African country that exports uranium to Europe for nuclear reactors. And he was sent by the CIA to Niger to see if this British report that Iraq had been trying to buy yellow cake uranium, that was nuclear grade uranium or weapons grade uranium for a weapons program, and he went there and was sent there and he said, no, this is just not true. Came back, told the CIA. The CIA told the White House. It was over a year ago. Well, by the way, if anything in my book, I will say this, anything in my book is wrong, it's because I got it from British intelligence. For example, there's one error we found already, that there's one place in the book where I say that Sean Hannity lived up Newt Gingrich's ass from 1994 to 98. I got that from British intelligence, and it turns out it was only it was from 1995 to 98 that they took residence up Newt's butt. So President Still decides to put in the speech that the British have learned. This is like how it's technically accurate. No, it isn't technically accurate. You can't learn something that isn't true. The British learned about it. So they lied. The president lied about why we're going to war, why we're sending our men and women into battle. Now, it's one thing to lie about your sex life. It's another thing to lie about sending our men and women into harm's way. So anyway, Wilson writes a column as this controversy is bubbling again in the New York Times and says, I went to Niger, went back, told him it wasn't true, the CIA told the White House. And to get back at him or to intimidate other analysts, senior administration officials called Bob Novak and other reporters who didn't report it. Bob Novak felt he had to report it. That Joseph Wilson's wife is an undercover CIA agent. And they call us unpatriotic. And so we're in Iraq. We are getting the first installment of $87 billion. We're there without any other, I was going to say with no international support, but we have Tonga is there. New Zealand has 7 troops there. It's funny. It's when Bush in 2000, during the campaign, said he was against nation building. I didn't realize he meant only our nation. So this is how shameless these guys are. The story the administration is now trying to tell us is that things are pretty much under control in Iraq. And so Fox News, and I mean, my book is not just about Fox News, obviously, and it's about the whole right-wing media and about Bush. But August 26th, this is what Brit Hume said on his show to communicate the idea that things are going pretty well in Iraq, not as bad as you'd think. He said, 277 U.S. soldiers have now died in Iraq, which means that statistically speaking, U.S. soldiers have less of a chance of dying from all causes in Iraq than citizens have of being murdered in California, which is roughly the same geographical size. The most recent statistics indicate that California has more than 2,300 homicides each year, which means about 6.6 murders each day. Meanwhile, our troops have been in Iraq for 160 days, which means they are incurring about 1.7 deaths, including illness and accidents each day. Now, he didn't mention there are 32 million people living in California, and that we have 140,000 troops in Iraq. So instead of being, statistically speaking, U.S. soldiers have less of a chance of dying, they actually have 62 times the chance of being killed. And for each one that gets killed, 10 get wounded. He didn't mention that. And he was asked about this later, because it's just pretty bad, and he said, well, admittedly, it was a crude comparison. But it was illustrative of something. And I agree with him. I'm going on my 4th USO tour at Christmas. This one I'm going to Iraq and to Afghanistan. And just for one thing, don't let them tell you that we're less patriotic than them. Just please don't ever let them tell you that. These guys are shameless. Now, back over here, the president's doing a great job here. He'll be the first president since Hoover to create no new net jobs in his first term as president. There will probably be about 2.5 million negative net jobs. If you put the two Bushes together, over more than 6.5 years, the two Bush administrations have created no new net jobs. Over 6.5 years. Now, numbers do not lie, ladies and gentlemen. If you extrapolate from that, if the Bushes had run this country from its very inception to the present day, not one American would have ever worked. Now, I saw President Clinton speak a few months ago to the Council on Foreign Relations, and he spoke from a couple notes, and he spoke for a couple hours in great breadth and depth on the world, and it kind of made me miss him. In fairness to President Bush, there's more to being president than simply being articulate, intelligent, and knowledgeable. And sometimes I think he's cleverer than we think. Remember during the campaign he said he didn't mind being misunderestimated. I think he was being pretty sly there, because I think what he really meant was that he doesn't mind being underestimated for the wrong reason. We thought he was just stupid. He's a liar. He's dishonest. For example, when he said during the campaign over and over and over and over again, by far the vast majority of my tax cuts go to those at the bottom. I said it over and over again. The press never went after. By far, the vast majority of my tax cuts goes to those at the bottom. Press never went after him for that. Why? Is it because I think the press has a conservative bias? No, I think the attitude of the press was, he doesn't know. Leave the man alone. He doesn't know. So now we've got one day a Team Franken member came in with, I found a great quote. And what was it? And it was from Ari Fleischer in December 2002 saying, there's a new sheriff in town. And this one is, what is it? Dedicated to fiscal discipline. Ari Fleischer, spinning like his dreidel. And now we're going to have $500 billion deficit next year. We're not paying for any of the things. He said, the surest way to know that a program is doomed is if the president does a photo op for it. And No Child Left Behind, the No Child Left Behind is the most ironically named piece of legislation since the 1942 Japanese Family Leave Act. This president had an incredible opportunity. After 9/11, we all got behind him. Everyone did. I did. I went to Kosovo and Germany for a USO tour, supported our operation in Afghanistan, which unfortunately he called a crusade. Not the smartest thing to call our war on terrorism. But virtually everyone got caught up in the patriotic fervor, as you remember. Even people you'd never expect. A friend of mine went right to his closet, got out his old America T-shirt. It took him about 4 or 5 hours to white out sucks. But it was a unique moment. It was a unique moment that this president had. Because we're united as a country as never before. And he could have taken us into a new American century, forged with a sense of mutual purpose and mutual sacrifice, but he didn't. He used it to pursue his own political gain. He used it to go into the 2002 elections by saying the Senate doesn't care about national security. To put up ads with Max Cleland next to Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein, Max Cleland, who lost 3 limbs in Vietnam. So he squandered this moment. All he did was continue to give tax cuts to those at the top. He asked nothing of anyone other than we stay alert. We've gone all the way up to orange. That is the second highest level of alert, but it's the highest level at which you're still encouraged to go to the mall. At red, the top level of alert, the president would ask you to shop online. I've been going all over the country doing book signings. Amazing number of people showing up everywhere. In Austin, Texas, I had 1,200 people in a Barnes & Noble. In St. Louis, 1,600 people. In Seattle, Molly Ivins and I together had 3,000 people. And they all want to take the country back. And we're going to do it. And we're going to do it. And we're going to do it. People like you, but we got to keep fighting. And we got to fight these bullies, and we got to fight. And we are going to do it. And a lot of people have asked me, what do you do? What do you do? Well, Mark and David Wellstone have decided that their parents' legacy is going to be something called Wellstone Action. And on www.wellstone.org, they're training activists. And there are waiting lines to get into these Camp Wellstones, so you're probably not going to get into that. But you can go to www.wellstone.org and find links to things that are happening mainly in battleground states. You might have to move. You don't mind doing that. You guys look retired. You can move. Florida is very nice. It's a very nice place. Yeah, it's closer, but do you really want to live in New Hampshire? Okay. No, it's much nicer in Florida. And no state taxes, right? Well, I know that you want to. I know that you wanted to get to questions and answers so that we could cut this seamlessly into a half-hour show. So, is that what we're going to do now? If you're ready. I'm ready. So, how do we do that? What's the procedure?
You are joining us at Cambridge Forum, listening to Al Franken discussing democracy in the age of W, part of public radio's special coverage, Whose Democracy Is It?
I think you could do that better.
You think?
No, I'm kidding. That was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I just didn't know why you did it exactly. But go ahead.
You've started to address this sort of public groundswell of support that you have been getting for your books. And you also talk in your book about the tone of politics and how it has really been partisan and how it's been set by the conservatives and this administration in particular, and over the years a number of administrations that are right-wing. This current tone over the last two elections yielded 39% voter turnout. My question is, are we sort of preaching to the pulpit here? Are we preaching to the choir? Are these the people here that would be voting anyway, or are we really starting a grassroots movement that's going somewhere?
Well, I'm going to prove to you that I'm not preaching to the choir. How many here voted Republican last time? But how many now of those who voted Republican last time are going to vote Democrat this time? Well, I think that shows you I'm making a real difference. Now, when you're talking about administrations past that have divided this country, talk about what happened during the Clinton administration. We had these Republicans and conservatives and right-wing nuts paying people to go out and make stuff up about the president, calling him a murderer, calling him a drug addict. We had checkbook journalism where they would just go to some guy who hated Clinton and he'd find some other yahoo and, who said that, the president and his brother were snorting cocaine and banging women in the next door, and you could hear the sniffling and literally, I'm talking, these guys, that's what I loved when Bush said he was going to change the tone. Why would anyone have thought that Bush would change the tone? Look what he did in South Carolina to John McCain. They were doing push polls that were basically, we're an independent, these are people getting phone calls, and it's, we're an independent polling company, we're conducting a survey, and if you knew that John McCain was a liar and a cheat, and that his wife was a drug addict, and that he had fathered an illegitimate black baby, would you be more likely to vote for him? or less likely to vote for him. That's who these people are. And the idea that these are the people who are going to change the tone, I don't know why anyone thought that. But now, a guy tells the truth about the weapons in Africa, I know, will out his CIA agent wife. These guys are just the worst.
You say that one of the goals of your book was to get the phrase kidding on the square into the cultural lexicon, so I'm going to help this along, which means kidding but also meaning it, and essentially I think summarizes the tone of your book. Is this kidding on the square, is this going to have an impact on the political lexicon that you think you want it to have? I mean...
No. I mean, it was just a little
itself.
lark trying to get kidding in the square. It's like when I call Karl Rove in the book human filth. That's like kidding on the square. Hey, Ben, where did you get this? Clearly it was meant purely and simple. This is a senior White House official said of the leak about... Yeah, but where did you... Washington Post. This is a senior White House official said of the leak about Joe Wilson's wife, quote, "Clearly it was meant purely and simply for revenge." This guy should be shot. And that's kidding on the square, see? Oh, but not shot. Just arrested. He was just he was not the... Hello, I'll be leaving now. Thank you.
Keep it over there. You were listening to Al Franken discussing democracy. All right, I'm going to do that one over. You are listening to Al Franken discussing democracy in the Age of Dubya. The floor is now open to the audience. If you would like to ask a question or make a very, very brief comment, please line up at the microphone.
Thank you very much. That's the brief comment. The question is, we absolutely have to get rid of not just George Bush, but Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and the gang around him. But I really hope, and I think the challenge that many of us are grappling with is how to do that with the best possible alternative we can come up with in this upcoming election, and there's no question that it's going to be a Democrat. You may not, for understandable reasons, want to be too specific about the current field. I'd be interested if you were willing to. If not, I would be interested to hear you talk about what are the qualities, what are the principles, what are the convictions and even the positions on important issues that you think we ought to be demanding so that we don't just get more of the same disguised as a Democrat, but that we get something that's really worth going out to those swing states and working for to beat Bush.
Okay, well, I like that answer. I like the honesty. I don't think there's a specific, I'm not going to go like a single-payer health system. I just don't think that's it. That'd be a great thing to fight for. I think I think of the candidates who are in the field who are likely to be nominated, who can win, we'd be fine with any of them. I think that we want a Democrat. You can be a Democrat if you say you're a Democrat. But I think we clearly wanted just a different approach. Clinton, I know a lot of Democrats had problems with Clinton. I didn't. I think he was a great president. And one of the reasons he was a great president, there's this thing in my book that I refer to called the DiIulio Memo, which was written by John DiIulio, who was the President Bush's head of the faith-based initiative. And he got a lot done. He got the faith-based Bureau of Weights and Measures going, and got the qubit back in play. Yeah, but the thing that he said was essentially that this administration has no policy apparatus whatsoever, no domestic policy apparatus whatsoever, and that everything is decided essentially by Karl Rove. And every economic idea is cut taxes. There's one idea, and it fits and Paul Krugman was here a week ago or something, and just read him. And all it is cut taxes, no matter what the situation is. We got a huge surplus, well, people deserve their money back. Give them a big tax cut. We got a recession happening, we'll give people a good big tax cut. The exact same shape, too. Exact same one will be perfect. We got a deficit, give them that same tax cut, the same shape. We need a president who we're confident will actually bring in, like when Mexico was faced with going bankrupt. Clinton actually brought experts on Mexico into the White House and had them meet with him and with Bob Rubin, who knew a lot about international banking. So this is why, and then they decided to bail out Mexico. And because they bailed out Mexico, it saved Mexico. Mexico paid us off, and we made money on it. This is why I think I'd like to have an adult. I like to have someone who cares about working people and has a record of that. Or Ann Coulter calls working families families in which no one works. And that's the attitude of this White House. So when you talk about someone who's had a record of caring about working people, you're talking about Dick Gephardt. When you're talking about adult, you're talking about John Kerry. When you're talking about someone who has a record of caring about things like health care, you're talking about Howard Dean. And I think Wesley Clark, for what, even though I'd like to know a little bit more about him, but I think he's an adult.
Hi, Mr. Franken. In your ongoing battle in the book and fighting these troglodytes like Ann Coulter and all of 19th century Fox News and everything, on NPR a couple of weeks ago you were talking about the possibility of a new talk radio station that was maybe coming into being, and I'm just wondering if you could give us an update on that. Thank you.
Yes, we're trying to launch a liberal talk radio network. Now I know this is going to be on NPR, and that's what conservatives think is a liberal network. But listen to an hour of Rush Limbaugh and listen to Talk of the Nation. Listen to NPR, and you go oh yeah, they're quite different. They're actually, we will. They're very different in tone, and liberals seem to want information, and conservatives seem to want ammunition. We are going to do a little of both. I think we'll be a little bit. We'll be more. I'm going to do with my radio show a lot what we do in the book, which is take what they say and it's jujitsu. Take what they say and use it against them, and just use it to subject them to scorn and ridicule. And unlike NPR, we, for example, will have no stories about Appalachian quilts. Just none. Not one, ever. No matter how interesting the old lady is. I don't care. Okay, you, sir.
One of the finest chapters in the book, and one of the most chilling, but also beautifully written, satirical, like Jonathan Swift, it reads, is Operation Ignore. Could you please speak on that?
Okay, Operation Ignore is a chapter about the Bush administration's counterterrorism effort, from starting with the transition till 9/11. Basically, and I've been chided by like some newspaper people, like, you think people are really going to think there was an Operation Ignore? And I go like, well, what? Why? Aren't you afraid people are going to think there was really an Operation Ignore? And I go like, you can't prove to me that there's someone that stupid. And if it is, I'm sorry, but I can't help it. Basically, starting with the transition, Sandy Berger met and Richard Clark met with Condoleezza Rice and her aide, Stephen Hadley, and told them basically two things. Osama bin Laden is the biggest threat to you, and it's going to take up most of your time. And secondly, we have a plan which includes putting boots on the ground in Afghanistan. And Condoleezza Rice was impressed enough to keep Richard Clark as her national security counterterrorism head, but they completely ignored him and put this on the back burner because anything that Clinton wanted to do, they didn't want to do. So they did nothing. And very briefly, when Hart Rudman came in February, and the report about terrorist threat, and said their commission came in with a report that said there is going to be a catastrophic terrorist attack on the United States. We need to put together a Department of Homeland Security, and they sort of delineated what still needs to be done in many cases, and this was ignored too. In May, the president did announce that they were instead, he was announcing a counterterrorism task force led by Vice President Cheney, which was going to meet regularly, and the president would meet with them every once in a while to review their findings. This was in May. They never met. Never met. Meanwhile, they were interested in other things. A missile defense shield. Ashcroft was turning down requests from the FBI for counterterrorism funding, including for interpreters. I mean, you just read the chapter. It's a chilling chapter, and it's basically, day 168. Operation Ignore faces its greatest test. The president is briefed that Al Qaeda is going to hijack planes, and he meets the test by ignoring it, and it's just they did nothing. They did nothing, and what's great about this, of course, is that since then they have done everything they can to cover up and stop 9/11 from being investigated. They dragged their feet on a congressional investigation. They didn't want it. They were forced into it. They have redacted like 20-some pages on Saudi Arabia. They flew out these Saudis right after 9/11 when no other Americans could fly. The bin Laden family could fly. And that's to cover up their oil connections. I mean, the Bush family oil. It's just sickening. And they are going to make, and not only that, but they're going to make 9/11 an issue in the campaign. That Democrats are weak on national security. That it was all Clinton's fault. Now they have this one great little thing they keep pushing, which is that in '96. Sudan offered us bin Laden. And they wanted to give him to us, but we didn't take him. And there's this guy who's got a book out. It's a Regnery book that's on the bestseller list, Losing bin Laden. And I saw him on Chris Matthews, and he said he had proof that Sudan offered us Osama bin Laden because he talked to the Sudanese general who made the offer. Okay, now Sudan is a genocidal, Khartoum is a genocidal regime. They've killed 2 million Christian blacks in southern Sudan. They engage in slave trade. They are the definition of a state that sponsors terrorism. This is like saying, I was at the Nuremberg trials, I talked to Goering, and he said, I have proof that they offered up Hitler in '36 to Jesse Owens, and we turned him down. But they have such contempt for their crowd. They just believe their readers will eat this stuff up, and they do.
Al, I love how you call these guys bullies, because that's what they are. And there's another issue around tone that I wanted to ask you about, and that's the issue of bullies on the actual playground in 4th, 5th, 6th grade. Being a person that grew up as an actor and an artist, I was picked on by the boys that were so good in sports. And in a lot of ways, that's been changing, challenging ideas of normative masculinity with issues around gay marriage and all that stuff. But if there's anything that the Bush... Thanks. If there's anything the Bush administration has done to our culture's boys, I think it's been telling them to be tough and to be sensitive, and not to be sensitive, obviously. Shows like Stripperella seem to be telling our boys that the idea of sensitivity is asking, was that good for you, baby? And just leaving it at that. So we've all heard your ideas on things, and I love them, and I can't get enough of them. What I'd love to know is what you'd have to say about Stuart Smalley and what he would have to say to our nation's boys about self-esteem and what George Bush's inner child is really saying.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get Stuart. I don't even know if he's here. Stuart? Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I don't know a lot about politics. Although Mahatma Gandhi was one of my heroes because I heard that, he was a great leader, and even though he had an eating disorder. So he was great. I don't know that much about President Bush. I know he's, an alcoholic who's white-knuckling it. But, and so I think one of the way he white-knuckles it is by trying to be macho. And it's so obvious. The landing on the aircraft carrier in that flight suit, and it was like, So, I don't know if I did an exact imitation, but anyway, so obviously, he has some issues. And that's all I'm qualified, to talk about with him, because as I say, I don't know a lot about politics. But, I wish him well, and I love him. And he claims to have been chosen by the higher power to run the country. And I think that's a little scary. Okay, well, thank you, Stuart. Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you. Stewart doesn't know a lot about politics. Bush has never himself claimed to have been chosen. His friends have said that he thinks he's been chosen. So that didn't come from me. It came from Stewart. Yes.
Mr. Franken, as someone who is also interested in seeing us take back the country, a couple of areas of concern, I wonder if you could address them for us. That's that the Republicans will have an enormous financial advantage in this campaign. That's why I think somebody who deep pockets, like I understand maybe Dean and the Kerry family have deep pockets, and that might be a useful thing to have a person like that on the ticket. They're talking about $270 million, and there's a host of billions that are really not accounted for in Iraq, going to Halliburton and Bechtel people who are mostly Bush supporters.
In fairness to Halliburton, you have to understand that when Cheney was CEO, and then up until now, that Halliburton, no American companies were allowed to do business with Iraq, Iran, or Libya, or any state-sponsored country that sponsored terrorism, but Halliburton did through offshore subsidiaries, and they were already in Iraq, doing $30 million worth of business with them. Iraq. So, in fairness to Halliburton, they already knew sort of their way around Iraq.
They were being paid to fix what Cheney blew up in the first Gulf War, I think. Right?
I'm sorry, what?
They were being paid to fix what Cheney oversaw blowing up in the first Gulf War, I think.
Okay.
But,
I'm sorry.
But the financial advantage, yeah. I'm wondering if there's a way. I know there'll be.
That's right.
I think there'll be a lot of rage against this White House. I don't see Iraq getting better before the elections. But the financial advantage the Republicans will have, and the other thing that concerns me is the election machines. Diebold, the guy who heads that company is a Bush fundraiser who's promised to deliver Ohio to Bush in 2004. Chuck Hagel apparently headed the company that made the voting machines that supervised his own election. And this is starting to cross over into a real issue. They're reporting on Salon magazine about it. There's a woman who has a book coming out about it. But it's a very scary thing. How can we get some accountability to know that our votes are really being counted and it's not Florida all over again on a grand scale?
Those are really good questions. I don't have the answers. On the money, you know, Clinton has said they can outraise us by 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, and we could still be competitive. But if they start outraising us 8-1, we got a problem. Now, what Dean has done is started raising money like Republicans. You know, direct mail essentially, but he's, you know, done it on the internet, and I think it's great. And his donors have averaged like $83 a donor, and so that means he can go back to them because they haven't maxed out. But I would encourage everyone here to give to Democrats and to you know, and that's so important, and we can't afford to let them, and they're gonna do all kinds of things. That's why they're doing their convention late, so they can spend a lot of money before September and stay on the air, and then get their money after the convention. And it's very scary, and that's why every one of us have to give money and do the work. But I think that nothing can stop us if this guy continues to do this bad. I mean, fortunately, he's his own worst enemy. I mean, it's not often that your poll ratings go down after a presidential address. His last presidential address, the $87 billion address, I think that was a large part of it. But another part of it was, I don't know why the guy has to have his eyebrows do this when he reads. I watched that whole speech, and all I could think through the speech was, can't someone get better at this? He's so bad at it. But yeah, we need to raise money. And one thing I talked to Terry McAuliffe, and he said that Dean is going to hand over, if Dean doesn't get the nomination, he's handing over his list. So Dean's a great guy. That's a great thing. But give money, and not just to me by buying the book, which is also very important. I mean, that's maybe the most important thing we can do. Yes.
Hi. I first wanted to say Thank you, because I spent the last 4 years at school in Washington and got so sick of the politics there that I had to move up to Massachusetts to be surrounded by liberals again. And I wanted to give up, and I was so sick of everything, and the first thing I did when I got here was I bought your book and I read it, and I want to be part of the change again. So God bless you for that.
Good. Thank you.
I'm a student actually over at the Grad School of Education here at Harvard, so I'm really interested in getting younger children involved with politics and civic action. And I know that as a father and as someone who's just recently worked with students here at Harvard, how do you think, first of all, is it appropriate to get younger children involved? I mean, you hear about Maria Shriver telling her kids that they're going out and pamphleting in California and having the doors slammed in their faces. Maybe rightfully so, but is it appropriate to get children involved? When is it appropriate, and how do you get them involved when the tone is what it is and then when the tone hasn't changed?
Well, I think when you have younger kids, the way I got interested in politics was that when I was a kid, we watched the news while we ate dinner. I'm not saying that's the best thing, because we never actually talked to each other. No, we did, and we talked about the news, and I came of age at a very political time during the Civil Rights Movement and then during Vietnam and stuff. And my parents were very politically literate and cared. My dad didn't graduate from high school, but he cared about what was happening in the world. And I think that with little kids, you tell them your values and why things are right and why things are wrong. My dad was a Republican. My dad was born in 1908. My dad was a Republican until 1964. He voted for Herbert Hoover twice. One of the few people to do that. But in 1964, this was during the Civil Rights Movement, my dad always said, the most wrong thing in the world is to discriminate and be a bigot. And when Barry Goldwater was against the Civil Rights Act, my dad said, that's it, and became a Democrat. And then during the war, during the Vietnam War, he campaigned for McGovern and was an anti-war activist and got arrested. So I think that when kids are real young, I don't think it's appropriate. I never like it when, you put like a, Bush or Dean or Kerry T-shirt on a 3-year-old. Because I think that's kind of like, kids should have a childhood. You shouldn't get them really involved in partisan politics until they're like 5 or 6. Okay? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Molly Dean, and I've no
hi,
relation to I've no relation to Howard Dean, but he was my governor for 10 years. I'm from Vermont, and I'm from Suffolk University, and we're actually doing a petition against the Patriot Act, which is another ironic act like the Leaving No Children Behind Act. And I was wondering what you think.
This administration. Irony is just one of the things they love. The Clear Skies Initiative. So evidently, the idea that is to clear the skies of birds. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just wondering what you thought about the Patriot Act.
I'm sorry?
As a whole, like the Patriot Act.
Oh, as a whole, what do I think of the Patriot Act? The Patriot Act. I'm not as, I worry about some of it. I did worry. The worst stuff I thought was arresting American citizens and not letting them see a judge or an attorney. I think that was the most scandalous thing that happened. I don't like the library stuff. But I'm not as familiar with the most egregious parts. I mean, Clinton tried to do things after Oklahoma City that Republicans just objected to, like being able to tap someone's phone when they change phones. Like it used to be that you had to get a wiretap I think it's before the Patriot Act, that you have to get a wire tap on Muhammad Atta's cell phone, and then when he switched cell phones, you had to get a new order to get, not Muhammad Atta, exactly, because we missed him because of Operation Ignore. But there are some parts of the act that I don't object to, and I worry about Patriot 2, and I worry more about Patriot 3. And I think Patriot 4 is going to be really bad. But I'm not as well versed on the Patriot Act as I should be. I think there are a lot of things that, a lot of abuses that I guess the Inspector General of the Justice Department documented, but I don't think it was necessarily just because they were following the Patriot Act. I think they were abusing it. Sorry.
Give you a nice liberal hug.
Yes. Imagine what I would have gotten if I had actually given a good answer. I don't know, no hug.
Damn it!
No. Go ahead.
Well, we know your views on the Fox News channel. What do you think about CNN and MSNBC trying to almost out-Fox Fox? Trying to be the new conservative voice here.
Yeah, MSNBC just went, whew. Whoa! I didn't even bother with Michael Savage. I mean, it's so punishing to have to read Ann Coulter that, I mean, I did have Team Franken research this stuff, but I also read it myself, and there was a limit. And I just couldn't. I read some Michael Savage, and I just went, this is just too disgusting. Unfortunately, he was kicked off the network. But, like, I hope you get AIDS and die is kind of a low bar. Okay, now we'll take him off. And the Scarborough, who's like a slightly less talented, but maybe not as crazy O'Reilly. And I don't know, they're floundering. Jon Stewart had a great joke about MSNBC, which is that they don't deserve all their letters. CNN tries, I guess, to get it right. I mean, they try. I was on Lou Dobbs the other day, and the guy wasn't even listening. And it was very weird. And I can tell he's very, very conservative, and that's why he decided not to actually listen to me. But, again, the mainstream media is... there's also something that... I think they have some good people at CNN. I really do, and I think they do a good job, and I turn to them when something's happening that I really want to know what's going on about. And let's see, who did I see today? Today, Lou Dobbs was going like, this is another thing he was doing today. He was like going like, didn't people know that Joseph Wilson's wife was a CIA agent anyway? I'm not kidding you. Before I came over here, I'm watching this, and he did this like 4 times. And like Insor, Peter Insor, or one of the reporters was going like, David Insor was going like, I don't think so. And that's really not the issue anyway, because certainly not publicly, maybe some friends of their family knew, I don't know, but no. And then later he went like, isn't it true that many people knew already that she was, it was that kind of... So there's some people there I like and some people I don't, but, what are you going to do? I remember once I put on my door at Saturday Night Live once, something that was in that Newsweek the thing where they quote things, and it was from somebody like the Minister of the Arts in Albania. And he said, here in Albania, in the arts, mediocrity is a big problem, but that seems to be a worldwide problem. And I think it's just a big worldwide problem, mediocrity. You know.
Hi. One of the things I think we're all really afraid is that the Republicans are going to steal another election from us. And a previous questioner had mentioned the black box voting, the devolved voting machines, and that's very, very important, and it's not getting a lot of coverage here. He mentioned a Salon article. I think there was a brief blurb in the New York Times. And I think it's very important and that the media becomes aware of this. And the media really shamelessly pilloried Al Gore back in the 2000 election. And I think was really instrumental in his losing the election.
I agree, and you'll see that in my book.
Yeah. How do we get them to wake up? I know you're putting together a liberal radio station, but there's got to be more that we can do as people to get them to wake up. It's just shameless.
Okay, first of all, I can only do so much. I mean, I'm really trying, honest.
I have to get my news from buzzflash.com, democraticulnderground.com. I can't even read CNN.com anymore.
Well, hopefully, our radio network will help in that regard. I'll keep an eye on that issue, and as the one person that seems to be able to reach America. For those of you in Radio Land, I was doing a self-deprecating kind of shrug. I'll try to get that out. Or try to get another question.
Hi. I was really surprised to hear that you were planning to go overseas and entertain the troops. And with the things that you're saying here tonight, and we keep hearing how these troops just think, they're doing a wonderful job, and they are doing a wonderful job, and we all support the troops. But how will your material be received, and won't you be afraid of friendly fire?
I do different material. Your commander-in-chief is a liar! Desert right now! No, yeah, I do a slightly different, I move it a little bit less about the personality of the president and how he's lied and gotten them into this horrible situation and how they're away from their families for so long because of him. And especially you reservists, I'm going to do a special hunk for them on how the president has screwed up. And no, I do a different kind of thing. Yeah. I do. You got to get to the thing.
Has anybody heard what happened to that serviceman months ago who said something about Rumsfeld?
Oh, about Rumsfeld?
Yeah.
No, but they outed, the White House called Drudge and outed the reporter as a gay Canadian.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. In addition to the devolved voting machines, which I originally stood up to ask about, but there have been two other people who asked about it. The other thing that worries, well, first of all, the devolved voting machines, their software is proprietary. So we don't have a right to look at the software of this company's voting machines that we're going to be using in the next election, or many people are going to be using. Anyway, the reason I stood up this time is because of the DLC, and I've heard you say that you're a DLC Democrat. What do you see the DLC standing for? Because I don't think a lot of people know what the DLC really stands for. And how do you see them helping us beat Bush in the next election? Or are you no longer a DLC Democrat?
Well, I don't know. When I said I'm a DLC Democrat, I kind of like saying I'm a Clinton Democrat, which I'm a third-way Democrat, which is I think that we have to weigh other third ways of doing things and look at possibly at things like experiments with vouchers, maybe. And then say they failed, and Paul Wellstone is someone I write about, and he was by no means a DLC Democrat, but I just think that sometimes that we can get overly rigid ourselves, and that we can be blind to the kind of things that open us to criticism about some of our, bureaucratic constituencies holding on to their own power instead of serving the people they're supposed to serve, and looking at things in new ways. And I just think that, and I'm talking about things like teachers' unions and other things like that, and I think we have to be open-minded and show the independence that we're open to doing things like scaling down the size of government, which the Clinton administration did, and making it run more efficiently, which Clinton and Gore did, and those kind of things. So that's what I mean, I think.
This is less in the form of a question like on Jeopardy, but it's like in an exam when they say, please discuss. In the past couple of years, one person has been absent, as far as I can tell, Ralph Nader. And I was just wondering what you and people of your cohort, have you met with him? What has he had to say in the past couple of years? And maybe during the entertainment portion, you could do Senator Phil Gramm.
Okay. Ralph Nader was a hero of mine, but I'm really angry at him for giving this election to George Bush. And this is why I say sometimes that I'm a DLC Democrat, but only because I just think that the idea that there was no difference between Gore and Bush was so ridiculous. And I mean, he shifted from there's no difference between Gore and Bush to things have got to get worse before they can get better. I mean, that as Bush showed who he was. And things don't have to, and we don't have to have judges picked by the extreme right wing in this country, and we need to have judges picked by people at least in the mainstream. And I like Ralph, but I just can't forgive him for this one. I just can't. I mean, he saved a lot of lives. He saved a lot of lives with what he did with the auto industry, and is a great man in many ways, but gee whiz, awful. And Phil Gramm, I own more guns than I need, but less guns than I want. I heard him say that to the NRA, and I thought to myself, he and I are very different. I flunked the 3rd, 7th, and 9th grades. Remember he said that? What a surprise, huh? Yes.
Yeah, regarding voting machines, I'd just like to note that I think Representative Holt has introduced a bill in Congress which would require a voter-verifiable audit trail for ballots. And also, I have a question. What do you think about the importance of weblogs as a resource, and which, if any, do you read?
Web blogs?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. God damn. Okay, I was, alternate. I go to that. I went to, Daily Howler is great. Daily Howler is, Bob Summerby, who does Daily Howler, we used a lot of that. And we used BuzzFlash sometimes, and MoveOn.org is a resource, and TruthOut.org, and Spin Sanity is good, although they weren't as kind as I felt. Spin Sanity kind of analyzes everything for its, truth and stuff. Media whores, but Spin Sanity sort of, attacks people like Coulter, and they go after Michael Moore sometimes and stuff like that. And on mine, they actually said that one of the problems with my book was that I made a lot of points with humor. And then I realized that there was a limit to how much I should use Spin Sanity. What am I forgetting? Talking Points memo? Huh? Atrios, yeah. I put a list of them in the back and I forgot some of them. Oh, FAIR is great, yeah. Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. And they got this the O'Reilly factor coming out that you get, yeah.
Getting back to your politics of the third way, Jerry Trudeau made a point a couple of weeks ago in a Sunday where he said the problem, his character summarized the problem like this. The conservatives have moral absolution. They know they're right. The liberals, third way, by definition, admit there are other possibilities. How is there any way to win an argument when the other side is unwilling to concede anything and when you are, by definition, having to concede that they may be right?
Well, I don't think you have to concede that they may be right when they're lying. I mean, being open-minded doesn't mean being stupid, and it doesn't mean conceding points that are irrational, and it doesn't mean it doesn't mean giving up on all principle. It just means showing to Americans that you're not so ideologically blinded by your own ideology that you can't look at things from in a clear-eyed way.
But there still is a possibility, for example, that the situation in Iraq could end up in the way that the neoconservatives see it. That is a fractional but non-zero possibility. So how do you bring the floor back to, yeah, but probably not a probability in a discussion without...
Well, you basically point out that where we've gotten now, we didn't have to be where we are now for about 8 different reasons. One of which was we were lied to, we were misled. If there was a reason to get into this war, Saddam Hussein's a really bad guy. They have been violating UN resolutions for 12 years. You can make that case, and you can go in and getting rid of them and setting up a democracy in a Middle East, a model democracy in a Middle Eastern country will show that it can be done, and it will encourage moderates in Iran to take over from the Ayatollahs there, and therefore dry up Hamas's resources and weaken Syria and settle Israel and Palestine. That was sort of what they were saying. Simple. And you notice that after we did attack Iraq and the Clinton military won the war there, that there was some hope in the Middle East, in Israel, and for about a week, And the neocons went, you see, you attack Iraq, you show some force in the Middle East, and Palestine and Israel get solved. And then it falls apart again, and they go like, huh? They aren't talking about that anymore. But no, I mean, just there's like a million points to be made about how badly they botched, how badly Bush botched the diplomacy, and why are we the only ones doing this? Why? And the only reason that, you know, getting inspectors in there was a good thing. So we got the inspectors in there. Why the hell did we go in? What was the hurry? Well, the hurry was, I don't know what the hurry was. The hurry was that the neocons just wanted to do this. Well, because they wanted to do this, it's costing us $87 billion. Our guys are getting killed. And we're the ones paying the price, and we're the ones bearing the burden in blood and treasure. And they screwed up. And there's no doubt about it, and there's no in-between on that. There's no third way on that. They screwed up.
I know that you're familiar with the concept of the tipping point, and I wonder if you could maybe take a look back and see what the tipping point was that got us into the tone of politics that we have now, back through the Clinton administration, and what the tipping point would be so that the American people will finally realize that they need to get rid of the gang of thugs and thieves that are in the administration now.
The tipping point that got the tone going.
Take no prisoners, no holds barred, political tone.
I trace it back to a moment where Richard Mellon Scaife said something we can't say on radio to a reporter, but that was one moment. It's in my book, so if you want to see some dirty language, you can read the book. I don't know. I mean, it traces back. Things got really, really, really ugly right away during the Clinton administration, and I can't remember what the first moment was, but I'm sure it was well before he was elected. Paying Jennifer Flowers, or as Stewart calls her, Jennifer Flowers, and the tipping point on when the American people realized this, may have been the president's speech asking for the $87 billion. Because Americans are they're worried about their own jobs. People in their families don't have jobs, are looking for jobs, are getting new jobs that are paying them less. People on the lower end are losing their kids. Single moms are losing Medicaid for their kids. This no child left behind thing is a joke. And then the $87 billion. And he asked for $87 billion. And you know this just is like a down payment. And it's not like the Marshall Plan, where we had like other countries going in on it, and it was international cooperation, and these are countries that had sort of like Germany was like a country, Germany, that had like a tradition. They had the Weimar Republic. It was weak, but they had like some tradition there, This is like something carved out by Great Britain with Sunnis and Shiites and Kurds, and we don't know what we're doing. And this is just, I think the tipping point has happened. And I think it happened on that speech. I think that was it. I think that's why his eyebrows were pointed up.
I think you'll agree with me that when I say that if Bush wins again, we're screwed. So can you explain to me why I shouldn't move to Canada if that happens? No. You look like Bill O'Reilly.
I can't think of a reason. No, I mean, we don't want to lose you, you know. I mean, there's always hope, you know. If Bush wins, we're looking at judges. Are we looking at judges?
6-3 instead of 5-4.
Yeah, we're looking at some really horrible stuff, and we're looking at deficits as far as the eye can see. And you, young man, will be paying very high tax rates, so that when I retire, I can have about half or 2/3 of the Social Security I expected. It's bleak, man. Oh, it's bad. It's going to be bad. It's going to be really, really bad.
Thank you. Could you tell us about the lying liars who defend people like Jefferson Davis? And secondly, what districts will you represent in Congress? I mean, why not you?
I'm sorry, what do I represent?
What districts will you represent in Congress?
Oh. I don't think I'll run for Congress. It's a lot of work. And I'm on the Upper West Side, and whoever we elect, we have a guy named Jerry Nadler who's very good. He got a stomach bypass, so that I don't think he's going to, I thought he was going to explode, and I might have to run. I'm sorry, Jerry, but it's true. I was worried that I might have to step in there. But he's had a bypass surgery, and he's looking good. Yeah, I write about Jefferson Davis and about the fact that I remember when there's a lot of talk about John Walker Lind as being the American Taliban, and how terrible a traitor he was, and I guess and he was, because he took up arms against the United States, if he did take up arms. But I remember watching CNN and listening to somebody say that while I was in South Carolina, and I was giving one of my well-received corporate lectures, and at the time, and I learned when I was in South Carolina they're still arguing about the Confederate flag, and I can't understand how you can have the Confederate flag up there, and because if you think about it, if you think John Walker Lind was a traitor, think of the worst traitors who ever lived in the history of this country were the Confederates. They took up arms against American soldiers. So, screw this heritage thing. This is a symbol of slavery. And it's, they took up arms against American soldiers for what cause? So they could own and whip people. That's the way I look at it. And I think it's just an offensive symbol. And Jefferson Davis, if you look at, how many Americans Saddam has killed and how many Jefferson Davis has killed, I mean, Jefferson Davis is just, it's like, what is it, like 160,000, 300,000? I mean, it's a lot of Americans that Jefferson Davis killed. So I'm not taking the book tour down south. I was in Austin, but that's it. There are some islands that you can go to, but I'm not like going to Anniston, Alabama, because that's in my book.
I'm sorry, folks, we're running out of time, and I do want to ask one last question. Hopefully you can ask your questions if you want to line up for the book signing afterwards. We had Robert Reich here about 2 weeks before we invaded Iraq. Many people, I think, were here for that. And he said that in spite of the assault on the environment, and in spite of the curtailing of civil liberties, and in spite of all of these problems that this administration has left us with, he was optimistic. He was hopeful. And I want to know how hopeful you are. I know that you are fired up, as are these people. Are you optimistic going into the 2004 elections?
Yeah, I am, but I'm under no illusions. These guys are going to have a lot of money, and they're going to fight as dirty as they can, and it's going to be just really close and really tough, and I'm really going to look into these debold voting machines. You know, I mean, before tonight, I thought they would never do something like that. I said, why? You know, they're bad, but would they steal it with voting machines? And then now tonight, I'm beginning to think they might. So, other than that, I'm really optimistic.
Thank you, Al Franken.
Thank you. Thanks.